Hello, I'm Graham Fitch, coming to you from Steinway Hall in London for Pianist Magazine. And today I'm going to be looking at studies, the topic of studies, etudes, if you will. The idea was, when these things first came into being, what was happening was the pianos were getting bigger and more difficult to play, and then we get the rise of the virtuoso, so music was getting more difficult. So it was believed that we needed to have a whole batch of studies that would strengthen the fingers or drill chords or whatever else. So we get a separation of music from technique. And the philosophy that they all believed was, so you spend an hour or two or three or four doing studies, gaining particular technical skills that you could then just transplant straight onto the music. So then you'd be able to play the music. If only it was as simple as that. I've got a lovely quotation from the great Martha Argerich here, who says, if you study in a book of exercises, considering only a certain aspect of the difficulty, you won't necessarily be able to achieve this in the piece because it's settled in differently. Quite often, if you train thirds, you won't necessarily be able to play the thirds Chopin etude. So it's not as simple as an hour on double thirds and then jump into this big concert study in double thirds. However, it's absolutely fine. I take a middle path with this. Some etudes, carefully chosen, can be very good and a part of our pianistic training, our pianistic diet, if you will. But don't spend hours and hours and hours doing them, and certainly don't do the boring ones. There are enough really good ones around there that we don't have to, spend hours. The other thing to remember, and I think this is seriously important, is that we can build our technique from any material. It doesn't have to be a study. It can be a piece. Usually a study will focus on one aspect of technique, sometimes two, that you can, yes, concentrate on that one aspect and develop it better than if you had a whole bunch of different things going on in a piece. So for example, Burgmüller, I love Burgmüller because he's so musical. This is Friedrich Burgmüller, who was around in 1806 and he passed away in 1874. And his first book of etudes is Opus 100. And you can make this sound really lovely. So it looks like sort of five-finger stuff in C major, but if you look closer, you'll see that we can choreograph these movements. So I'm aiming for good sound, good feeling in my body, and again, an avoidance of that nasty piston-fingered approach that he may well have come from. The second etude is called arabesque, and we get little down-up motion. Five-finger positions mobilized against a nice dry left hand. And like any good study, the left hand now has that. And then back to that again. Simple structure, really imaginative. I like very much Burgmüller. Everything he writes is absolutely worth doing. It's still fresh now. Czerny, okay, so some Czerny is beautiful and really wonderful, and I must say, I hate to say this, but there's quite a bit of it that is boring, a bit dry, goes on too long. So choose the short ones. This is from Opus 261, simple little study based on rotation patterns. And you notice when I played my five-finger position at the end that I mobilized my hand. I didn't play like that. And again, I'm giving a good sound, I hope. some shape to the piece. I didn't play it mechanically. Let me look at another one. This is also Czerny. Very often what he does is he gives one for the right hand that moves around, and then there will be something where the left hand moves around a bit. See, that's quite athletic for the left hand. Very useful for the left hand. We've got a whole bunch of 16th note semiquavers. And I wish we had time for me to give you some ideas about how we would practice that, but I can think of 101 different ideas how we would practice that. But let me move forwards to another composer whose studies I think are very good indeed, Cornelius Gerlet. He was around, 1820 to 1901. And this is a little exercise or a little study from School of Velocity for Beginners. And we get scales. There's just the first part of it. And now the left hand has, see the idea, that's very good, because some of these scales don't start on the first note of the scale, they start on the second note. And because we're dealing with a piece of music, we need to play the scales with shape, not mechanically, with shape, rhythm, colour. What about this one for arpeggios? Gerlet as well. Arpeggios with pedal. That's quite a sweet one. Coming back to Burgmüller, from the Opus 109 set, there's a charming study here. It's number 2, and it's called The Pearls, Les Perles. And this is, if I play you just the structure of it, you'll see how really simple it is. I'm missing out a whole bunch of notes in the right hand. I'll put them in a minute. Just tonic dominant. What could be simpler? Subdominant, tonic. Right now the study as he wrote it. I hope he will forgive me that squished note there. But isn't that charming? And you get to play scales with the pedal. I mean, what pianist, what piano student wouldn't love to do that? I get to play my scales with the pedal. It sounds like $1 million, doesn't it? It's just beautiful. The texture is beautiful, very imaginative, you know. And there's another one from the Opus 105 set that deals in chromatic scales. But again, if you ask a piano student to play a chromatic scale, they're not going to get very enthusiastic about it. This might arouse their enthusiasm. And then the left hand has the scales. I mean, isn't that nice? I think it's great fun. If you want something a little bit more contemporary, there's some beautiful studies by Moszkowski, particularly the 20 little Etudes, Opus 91, that's in 2 books. So what we find in Moszkowski, just more variety. It's based on more romantic harmony, for a start, and the patterns that we find are a little bit less predictable. So this one, which one's this now? This is number 7. Well, it starts off with the G major scale, but already by bar 2, have a listen. And it's charming, isn't it? That's so much more interesting than the average etude from 50 years or 100 years before. So do look into the Moszkowski. I'm a great fan of Donald Waxman. I think he's written some most beautiful educational piano music. And I'm going to end with the etude in legato double notes from, I think this is book 1 of his piano studies. I'll just quote a little bit of it. I won't play the whole thing. Unfortunately, there's not time. So what we get here is double notes in the right hand as the accompaniment. And we have to be very coordinated to play that for the whole etude. He does change it around on the second page. Let me just play a little bit. You'll notice that there's a tune in the left hand and there's some just full of atmosphere. And the piece at the end has a little title, ... Fable. Let me show you. It's just a short extract of this etude. Like all really good etudes, you shouldn't really know what it is, the technical difficulty. I mean, obviously the pianist needs to know, but the listener should just be aware of a beautiful piece of music. So all of the great concert etudes achieve that. Liszt, Chopin, you know, Ligeti in the more modern age. So just remember one thing, that any piece, any material can be used to develop technique. If you're going to practice etudes, find the best ones. Don't practice dry, boring ones, and don't spend too long on them. We're playing the piano not to practice etudes, but to play repertoire. So keep everything in moderation there. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you again sometime very soon.